Backcountry camping essentials. What should you bring with you when you're really going into the backcountry where nothing is except nature? So backcountry camping is definitely for those who are more advanced in terms of camping. You're very far away from civilization, you're really out in the woods for real. So when you're doing this, it's very important that you're very prepared. You bring stuff that's going to help you survive, because especially if you're going alone, the only person you can rely on is yourself and what you bring with you. So one of the most important things to start, obviously, is a shelter. Now, there are some bushcraft people who like to go no shelter, this challenge, which can be fun, but it can also be very difficult. So if you're not at that level yet, just go for a tent. An ultralight tent is always a good idea because it barely takes up any space in your backpack. Easy to set up. And protects you from the wind, from the rain, from the sun, basically everything that the elements can throw at you. So bringing a tent with you is pretty much essential, or a bivvy, whatever you want to bring with you. Some people just bring a tarp. That can be good depending on how the weather's going to be. A tarp can only help you so much, not so much if there's a huge downpour or really cold wind and that sort of stuff. Now, besides your shelter, which is pretty much essential to bring with you, you also want to be very conscious about your water supply, staying hydrated, because obviously, hiking out into the backcountry, that's going to get you dehydrated pretty quickly. So having a water bladder or a very large water bottle is a good idea. Also, bring some water purification tablets, maybe a water filter, like a life straw or something like that, with you is always, very, very important. Even if you come across the clearest, looking stream out in the forest, there's still probably going to be some bacteria in there that can get you sick. Now, you can't always use the old-fashioned, boiling the water, but that is some extra effort that you don't have to do if you have the purification tablets or a water filter. So keeping either of those, or preferably both of those objects on you, is always a good idea. So you always have a good supply of water on you no matter where you are. Even if you have a relatively gross supply of water, a water filter like a life straw will filter all that out so it's actually drinkable. Now, instead of just thinking about hydration, you also have to think about food, obviously. Now, food is a bit more flexible than water. Obviously, you can bring some dehydrated meals, but those are only going to last you so long. Say you're going to stay out in the backcountry for quite a long time. Or maybe you just don't want to bring dehydrated meals. You can go fishing. Depending on certain areas, you can go hunting. So it's, depending on where, how bountiful the wildlife is, and if you can actually go after it, you can get food that way. But besides that, foraging is an option. Although I recommend being very careful with foraging, especially if you've never done it before. It's very important to kind of know exactly what kind of plants you're eating, because you could easily poison yourself if you're not careful. And again, just bringing food with you, bringing some protein bars, bringing dehydrated meals, jerky, fruits, nuts, that sort of thing. Those will pretty much keep you going, keep you with all the carbs and protein and energy that you need to keep going. Now, another pretty important thing to consider, especially when the temperature starts to drop, is making a fire or having equipment to start a fire. So there are many, many methods to start fires now. You can get a flint and steel, like a ferro rod sort of thing. There are storm matches, they are pretty much waterproof. You can bring a lighter, that sort of stuff. So I always recommend having at least 2 ways to start a fire. So in case one fails for some reason, you have another way to start a fire. Because having a fire obviously is going to be important for keeping yourself warm, especially at night when the temperatures start to drop, or you just want a light source during the night, so you kind of know what is in your general vicinity. Also, fire is good for cooking, obviously. So you catch a fish, you want to cook something over the fire, it's very easy to do. And just in general, it's just important to have a fire, especially if you are in the mountains or in just a cold area, or you're daring for some winter camping, that sort of thing. So keeping that in mind is pretty important. And of course, bring a first aid kit it'll just be a nice comfort to have, even if you don't injure yourself. You know, have some antiseptic, some band-aids, some bandages, that sort of thing. So if you do get injured, even if it's just a scratch, you can take care of it and you won't have to worry about infections and problems like that to ruin your kind of camping adventures. But besides that, that is pretty much all I have to say about backcountry camping essentials. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, of course, leave a like and maybe subscribe, and I make a few videos throughout the week, so stick around for those.